Are you looking for the best bargain in rail travel in the United States? Well, today I'm going to share with you how I traveled over 5,000 miles and went through 12 different states by purchasing one single ticket to travel by rail. So hang on and I'll tell you the secret. All aboard! Hi, my name is Alan Crosby, and today I'm going to tell you a little bit about a journey that I took by rail, where I visited over 12 different states and traveled over 5,000 miles in about 2 weeks time period. It was an incredible adventure, and I'm already planning my next trips on Amtrak, and I did this by using one of Amtrak's best bargains, the USA Rail Pass. And today I'm going to share with you how I planned that trip, how I worked it out, and how easy it is, because you can take this an amazing trip simply by purchasing one ticket to travel a long distance. And I'm going to share with you how that works. Now, if you're new to train travel here in the U.S., you might be asking, what exactly is a rail pass? In a nutshell, it's a single ticket that you can purchase from Amtrak that allows you to take multiple trips over a large distance at a very discounted rate. For one base price, you can travel up to 10 different Amtrak segments, making multiple stops along the way. And that's the exciting part. I mean, this means that you can travel on any train that Amtrak offers anywhere in the country for one single ticket price. It's one of the best values that Amtrak has to offer. And this past summer, I traveled on Amtrak on a trip that took me across 12 different states. I went all the way around, you might say, the western United States. And it was a trip of over 5,000 miles journey that lasted right at 2 weeks. And I did this by purchasing the USA Rail Pass. It allowed me to take a long trip and make stops in places like Chicago. And I left from Central Texas and went to Chicago. I went on to Denver, Colorado. I went from there to San Francisco, down to Los Angeles, and from Los Angeles all the way back to my home in Central Texas. And now I'm planning 2 additional trips that I'm going to take in the near future by using the same exact method. So you must be asking, how does this really work? Well, first, let's talk about what the USA Rail Pass really is. Simply speaking, in a nutshell, this is the single ticket that allows you to take up to 10 different segments, travel 10 different segments on any Amtrak route, with the exception of the high-speed Acela route and the auto trains on the East Coast. Any other Amtrak service that you might be able to name, you can pretty much use this rail pass. And the simplest way to explain a segment is that a segment is any time that you start a trip in one place and get off the train in another place, your city of destination. So this can be a short trip, it can be a long trip. For example, from Chicago to San Francisco on the California Zephyr, could be considered one segment, as long as you don't stop in the middle and say spend the night and get off the train and get on a separate train. Then that would be considered a single segment. Now, the train's going to make stops along the way. They're going to be fresh air breaks. You can get off the train, you can walk around. They're going to change crews. It may take up half an hour. That is not considered a break in your segment. That's just a stop along the way, and you get to see all these wonderful cities that you never planned on seeing, but it's a part of your trip. But on my trip I went to see my grandkids in Denver, But to get there, there was no direct route from Central Texas to Denver. So to get to Denver, I had to go through Chicago. So I took a trip from Central Texas all the way to Chicago, Illinois. That was one segment. And then I took a trip from Chicago on to Denver. That was a second segment, and so on. So when you continue on, if you stay on the train without getting off the train at a destination site, that is considered a single segment. That's what makes this such a great value. It gives you the opportunity to visit many different destinations and cities for one single ticket price. So how did I determine that this was going to be the very best deal for me to do the traveling that I wanted to do? I'm glad you asked, because the first thing that I did was that I planned out my trip, and I thought about all the places that I wanted to visit, all the things that I wanted to do, the cities that I wanted to go to. And to be very honest, the first thing that was on my mind was to go visit my grandkids. I hadn't seen them, well, it was almost a year. And so I wanted to go to Denver, and I thought, hold it, if I'm going to Denver, I've got to go through Chicago. I'm already in Denver, why not go on to San Francisco? Why not, and I planned it all out, and I calculated on, to be honest, some of the stops were not a part of my plan, okay? Because to change trains in Chicago, the trains don't line up well enough, so you actually have to spend the night in Chicago. So I spent the night in Chicago. I went on, when I got to San Francisco, I spent a couple of nights in San Francisco. I went on down to Los Angeles. I had to stay a night in Los Angeles to catch the train for the next day. So after routing out my trip, and I counted up all the cost of all the individual segments that I was going to take, and I calculated it, and it ended up being more than the cost of the USA Rail Pass. So I thought, hey, this is a great bargain, and I'll have trips left over even after I get back. So it was the best bargain by far to visit nearly half of the United States in one single trip. By now you're probably thinking, this sounds too good to be true. The Rail Pass, but I will tell you this, the Rail Pass does come with a few guidelines, okay? Some people call them restrictions. I prefer to call them guidelines. I like to stay positive. So you can purchase this ticket before you actually schedule any of your segments, okay? So you can buy the ticket and then later schedule all of your trips. All the ticket does is guarantee you, it's like a permission slip that allows you to travel up to 10 different segments on Amtrak. And once you purchase the ticket, here's the first guideline. Once you purchase that ticket, you have 120 days from the day you purchase the ticket to complete all your travel. So let's say you want to travel in June. You could purchase the ticket in March. That gives you all of March, all of April, all of June, and even July if you wanted to do your travels. But there's a second guideline. Once you start your first trip, once you step on the train for the first segment of all the tickets that you purchased, that begins your journey. And from that day, you have 30 days, within that 120-day window, you have 30 days to complete all of your trips. So let's say this is what I did. I purchased my ticket in April, and then I didn't travel until July. And once I finished my 2 weeks of travel, I still had time left over through the end of August. So it gave me time to flex a little bit with my trips and my travels. And honestly, I traveled over 5,000 miles and I still had segments left over. So what did I do? I went on another trip after I got back home. And the pass, the second guideline, or maybe it's the third guideline, here I'm not counting, but next guideline, the pass can only be used for coach seat travel. It can't be upgraded to a sleeper compartment. You cannot upgrade it to a bedroom or a roomette. You can't trade up. You can't convert it over to one of those tickets. It is a coach seat ticket. But once you get on the train, you can't tell the difference between the ticket you purchased and the guy sitting next to you who paid full price. Okay? So you have access to every part of the train, just like everybody else. You have the same amount of luggage you can bring on. You have access to the dining car, or the cafe car, the lounge car, and if there is room, like a lot of times, the sleeper car passengers don't take up all the meals on a train, and so they open it to coach travelers, and you have access to the dining car in that situation. And you can get off at just about any stop for a fresh air break along the way. So it's very flexible as long as your trip can work in to the guidelines that are established. Again, once you start that first trip, you have 30 days to complete all 10 segments. So what happens to the segments that are left over? Let's say if you didn't use a couple of segments, they go away. You can't trade them up for another coach seat or convert them over onto another type of ticket. So let's talk price. The USA Rail Pass can be purchased standard rate without any discounts. The standard rate is $499. Now it's not $499 plus fees and taxes and all this stuff. It's $499. That's the everyday standard rate. Now occasionally, Amtrak will put this ticket on sale, the USA Rail Pass on sale, but you have to watch for it. The last time I remember it being on sale was not too long after COVID, and they ran a special for like $299. But just keep your eye out. But you might ask, is it really worth it? For me, yes, it was. For anyone that wants to go to multiple destinations and make multiple stops along the way, it is a great bargain. I've even heard of people doing a complete circumnavigation of the United States, starting in New York and going all the way to Seattle, all the way down the West Coast, all the way back to Washington, D.C., from Los Angeles, and up the coast back to New York, doing a complete circumnavigation. And along the way, on my trip, I was able to visit some major cities. I was able to go through the Rockies on the train, the Sierra Nevada in California, some of the most beautiful segments that Amtrak has to offer. I was able to stay in some beautiful hotels in Chicago and San Francisco, Los Angeles, and eat some great iconic restaurants, Little Italy in Chicago, down on Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, and in Little Tokyo in the heart of Los Angeles. But I visited some of my favorite locations along this trip, and I spent some great time with my grandkids. That was the highlight of my trip, and I did that with one ticket for one price, and I still had segments left over. So now I'm planning two more trips, actually two major trips, and one smaller trip on Amtrak, which I'll be going on a smaller trip at the end of November to San Antonio, one of my favorite cities in the whole world, celebrating my birthday weekend. So it all pays off in the end. Now, what's the real trick to getting the most out of your USA Rail Pass? My suggestion would be, number one, plan your trip well, okay? Plan out all the places that you want to go, all the places you want to visit, the things you want to do, all the connecting lines that's going to take to get you from point A to point B. Where do you want to stop? What do you want to see and do? Do you want to go to some national parks? You want to visit family? I contacted, you can buy the ticket online. You can go use the app, or you can go through their website and purchase the ticket. But being my first time to purchase it, I actually called Amtrak's helpline And they were tremendously helpful. They asked me, when do you want to travel? When is your trip planned for? And they suggested, listen, wait till closer to your trip time. If you're going to travel in July, wait till like May to purchase your ticket. And that will give you more time in case you have some kind of cancellation or interruption. So once I had purchased the ticket and I bought it through them, I gave them my credit card information and bought the ticket at the website, I was able to use that reservation number and then go onto the app and reserve every one of the segments that I wanted to travel. I was able to go online using that reservation number and easily book all of the segments that I wanted. And I did as a single, how do you say this? A single senior citizen? You can make an acronym with that. But I did the entire trip solo. And I never had a concern about safety or never had a concern about getting lost on my way to a destination. Everyone was helpful. And when you got hair this color, you get a free pass to a lot of things. In some of the stations, the red cab service came by with that little golf cart and carried me all the way out. I mean, you walk from one end of that train to the other, it's quite a walk. So they picked me up, took me right to the car I was going to stay in. So my advice is this. It was interesting because when I told my friends and family members and so forth about the trips that I was going to take, nobody said, "Oh my goodness, that's a long way. Are you going to be all right here? Is it safe? I mean, what if something happens along the way?" And they didn't say those things. What they said was, and this is almost without exception, what they said was, "I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to take a trip like that." So here's my advice to you. Take the trip. Don't wait. And after, we're never promised tomorrow. Don't wait to have your great travel adventure. Amtrak is running 24/7 and ready to take you to whatever destination you want. And the USA Rail Pass is a great way to get there. And after you take your trip, drop me a note, leave me a comment, send me an email, tell me about your experience. Maybe ask me about my experiences. I made, on this channel, I made some awesome videos of the trips that I took last summer, and you can go on there, watch them, and I encourage you to subscribe to the channel so that you can get updates about the future trips that I have planned on Amtrak. So go buy your USA Rail Pass. All aboard.